The death of Nero in 68 CE triggered a power vacuum that shook the foundations of the Roman Empire. With no designated heir and the Julio-Claudian line extinguished, Rome entered the infamous year of the four emperors. Galba, a governor of Hispania, was the first to seize power, marching on Rome with the backing of the legions. However, his short reign was marked by missteps and brutality. His failure to reward the Praetorian Guard and his neglect of popular sentiment made him deeply unpopular. Within months, Otho, another powerful figure with his own ambitions, orchestrated a coup, and Galba was killed in early 69 CE. Otho's reign, though more promising, was short-lived. He faced an immediate challenge from Vitellius, commander of the legions in Germania, who marched on Italy and defeated Otho's forces. Otho committed suicide in a desperate act of honor to avoid more bloodshed. Vitellius took the throne, but failed to secure lasting control. His lavish lifestyle and inability to manage the military quickly led to unrest. Meanwhile, in the eastern provinces, the legions declared their loyalty to Vespasian, a seasoned general commanding forces in Judea. His troops advanced toward Rome, defeated Vitellius' loyalists, and installed Vespasian as emperor by the end of 69 CE. With the rise of Vespasian, the Flavian dynasty was born. Vespasian reigned from 69 to 79 CE and is credited with restoring stability and order after a year of chaos. He embarked on significant financial reforms to stabilize the empire's economy, drained after years of mismanagement and civil war. He began rebuilding the capital and initiated the construction of the Flavian amphitheater, later known as the Colosseum, which became an enduring symbol of Roman engineering and public entertainment. Vespasian also reorganized the military and provincial administration, reinforcing loyalty to the central government. His reign was practical and moderate, and he ruled without the extravagant excesses that had marked some of his predecessors. Upon his death in 79 CE, he was succeeded by his elder son, Titus. Titus, though only ruling for 2 years, gained considerable respect from contemporaries and historians alike. He is best known for completing the Colosseum and for his compassionate handling of major disasters. In 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted, burying Pompeii and Herculaneum under volcanic ash. Titus organized massive relief efforts, demonstrating concern for the victims. Despite a short reign, his reputation for justice and mercy earned him the affectionate title, Delight of Mankind. He died unexpectedly in 81 CE, and rumors swirled that his younger brother, Domitian, might have played a role, though there is no definitive evidence. Domitian, the last of the Flavians, ruled from 81 to 96 CE. Unlike his brother, Domitian sought absolute control and moved to centralize authority. He preferred direct rule over delegation and closely monitored the Senate and administration. He declared himself Dominus et Deus, reflecting his authoritarian style. Domitian invested in building projects, strengthened border defenses, and undertook campaigns in Britain and along the Danube. However, his reign grew increasingly repressive. He purged the Senate, suppressed dissent, and ruled through fear. Eventually, he was assassinated in a palace conspiracy in 96 CE, orchestrated by court officials and possibly with the support of his wife Domitia. The death of Domitian marked the end of the Flavian dynasty and opened the door for a new and more stable period known as the era of the 5 good emperors. This era began with the ascension of Nerva in 96 CE. Though his reign was short, it was significant for establishing the precedent of adopting a capable heir rather than relying on bloodlines. Nerva adopted Trajan, a popular general, who became his successor and one of Rome's greatest emperors. Trajan ruled from 98 to 117 CE and is remembered for his military conquests, vast building projects, and social welfare programs. Under his leadership, the Roman Empire reached its greatest territorial extent. Trajan's construction projects were numerous and grand. Trajan's Forum, Trajan's Column, and a new port at Ostia all testified to his commitment to infrastructure and Roman prestige. He also implemented the Alimenta program, providing food and support to poor children across Italy. Trajan's combination of military success and civic-minded governance made him a model emperor in later centuries. His adopted heir, Hadrian, succeeded him after his death. Hadrian reigned from 117 to 138 CE and marked a departure from expansionist policies, choosing instead to consolidate and defend the empire's vast borders. He famously ordered the construction of Hadrian's Wall in Britain to mark the northern limit of Roman control. Hadrian traveled extensively throughout the empire, personally inspecting provinces and initiating building programs in cities from Athens to Egypt. He was a great admirer of Greek culture and supported arts and architecture, leading to a flourishing of classical styles. However, Hadrian also dealt with significant unrest, including the Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea, a massive Jewish uprising that resulted in brutal suppression and the renaming of Jerusalem to Alea Capitolina. Despite controversies, Hadrian's reign is largely remembered for stability, intellectual patronage, and administrative efficiency. Hadrian adopted Antoninus Pius as his successor, and the latter ruled from 138 to 161 CE. Antoninus' reign was one of peace and prosperity, with no major wars or upheavals. He maintained a careful balance between imperial authority and senatorial power, earning respect as a just and pious ruler. He promoted legal reforms and maintained the empire's infrastructure. His epithet Pius reflects both his loyalty to Hadrian as memory and his devotion to duty. Marcus Aurelius, who co-ruled briefly with Lucius Verus before the latter's death in 169 CE, ruled from 161 to 180 CE, a philosopher king and the author of the famous Meditations. Marcus was a follower of Stoic philosophy and believed deeply in reason, duty, and virtue. His reign, however, was marked by external challenges. The Antonine Plague, possibly a form of smallpox, swept through the empire during his reign, killing millions and weakening the population. Despite these challenges, Marcus remained committed to his principles, striving to govern wisely and justly. His death in 180 CE marked the end of the Pax Romana, the long peace initiated by Augustus. Tragically, Marcus Aurelius broke the adoption precedent and appointed his biological son Commodus as successor. Commodus ruled from 180 to 192 CE and marked a sharp departure from the virtuous image of his father. He was vain, obsessed with gladiatorial combat, and increasingly erratic in his behavior. Though he initially left much of the administration to competent officials, he later dismissed or executed them and ruled with increasing cruelty. Commodus fancied himself the reincarnation of Hercules and participated in staged gladiator battles, shocking the Roman elite. His reign degraded the dignity of the imperial office, and discontent grew. In 192 CE, he was strangled in a palace plot involving his mistress and disaffected officials. With Commodus dead, the empire once again descended into turmoil. The year of the 5 emperors began with the Senate's appointment of Pertinax, a respected statesman. However, Pertinax's attempts to reform military discipline angered the Praetorian Guard, who assassinated him after just 3 months. What followed was one of the most infamous moments in Roman history. The Praetorian Guard literally auctioned off the empire to the highest bidder. Didius Julianus won the bidding war, but ruled for only 9 weeks before being overthrown. 3 powerful generals now emerged to vie for control: Pescennius Niger in the east, Clodius Albinus in the west, and Septimius Severus, governor of Pannonia. Severus acted quickly, marched on Rome, and took control, declaring himself emperor. He defeated Niger in Syria and Albinus in Gaul, securing his position by 197 CE and founding the Severan dynasty. Septimius Severus ruled from 193 to 211 CE and focused on military reforms, centralization of power, and dynastic succession. He expanded the army's privileges, increasing their pay and influence. But this also entrenched the military's role in politics. Severus waged campaigns in Parthia and Africa and was successful in expanding Roman influence in those regions. He also worked to weaken the Senate's authority and made the imperial office more overtly autocratic. Unfortunately, his sons Caracalla and Geta would ignore the first part of this advice. Upon Severus' death in 211 CE, Caracalla and Geta were declared co-emperors. However, their rivalry quickly turned violent. Caracalla murdered Geta in 212 CE during a supposed reconciliation meeting. He is perhaps best known for the Constitutio Antoniniana, an edict that granted Roman citizenship to nearly all free inhabitants of the empire. Though this expanded tax revenues and legal unity, it diluted the prestige of citizenship. Caracalla also continued campaigns in the east, but his tyrannical rule made him many enemies. Macrinus, a Praetorian prefect, briefly became emperor but lacked senatorial support and military popularity. Elagabalus' reign was one of the most controversial in Roman history. He shocked Roman society with his disregard for traditional customs. Eccentric religious practices centered around the sun god Elagabal and scandalous personal behavior. Severus Alexander ruled from 222 to 235 CE and tried to restore stability. However, his perceived weakness and failures in military leadership led to dissatisfaction, especially during campaigns against Germanic tribes. In 235 CE, he was murdered by his own troops, marking the end of the Severan dynasty and the beginning of the crisis of the 3rd century, period of rapid emperor turnover, foreign invasions, and internal fragmentation.